Good morning. This is the Paradise Unicorn Priestess bringing you day 214 of A Course in Miracles, the Yin translation where we use female words. This would be August 2nd if you're starting at the new year. The Rock of Salvation. Yet if the Holy Spirit can commute each sentence that you laid upon yourself into a blessing, then it cannot be a sin. Sin is the only thing in all the world that cannot change. It is immutable, and on its changelessness the world depends. The magic of the world can seem to hide the pain of sin from sinners, and deceive with glitter and with guile. Yet each one knows the cost of sin is death, and so it is. For sin is a request for death. A wish to make this world's foundation sure as love, dependable as heaven, and as strong as God herself. The world is safe from love to everyone who thinks sin is possible, nor will it change. Yet, is it possible what God created not should share the attributes of her creation when it opposes it in every way? It cannot be that the sinner's wish for death is just as strong as God's will for life, nor can the basis of a world she did not make be firm and sure as heaven. How could it be that hell and heaven are the same? And is it possible that what she did not will cannot be changed? What is immutable besides her will, and what can share its attributes except itself? What wish can rise against her will and be immutable? If you could realize nothing is changeless but the will of God, this course would not be difficult for you. For it is this that you do not believe. Yet there is nothing else you could believe if you but looked at what it really is. Let us go back to what we said before and think of it more carefully. It must be so that either God is mad or is this world a place of madness. Not one thought of hers makes any sense at all within this world, and nothing that the world believes as true has any meaning in her mind at all. What makes no sense and has no meaning is insanity, and what is madness cannot be the truth. If one belief so deeply valued here were true, then every thought God ever had is an illusion. And if but one thought of hers is true, then all beliefs the world gives any meaning to are false and make no sense at all. This is the choice you make. Do not attempt to see it differently, nor twist it into something it is not, for only this decision can you make. The rest is up to God and not to you. To justify one value that the world upholds is to deny your mother's sanity and yours. For God and her beloved child do not think differently, and it is the agreement of their thought that makes the child a co-creator with the mind whose thought created her. So if she chooses to believe one thought opposed to truth, she has decided she is not her mother's child because the child is mad and sanity must lie apart from both the mother and the child. This you believe. Think not that this belief depends upon the form it takes. Who thinks the world is sane in any way, is justified in anything it thinks, or is maintained by any form of reason, believes this to be true. Sin is not real, because the mother and the child are not insane. This world is meaningless because it rests on sin. Who could create the changeless if it does not rest on truth? The Holy Spirit has the power to change the whole foundation of the world you see to something else, a basis not insane, on which a sane perception can be based another world perceived, and one in which nothing is contradicted that would lead the child of God to sanity and joy. Nothing attests to death and cruelty, to separation and to differences. For here is everything perceived as one, and no one loses that each one may gain. Test everything that you believe against this one requirement. and understand that everything that meets this one demand is worthy of your faith, but nothing else. What is not love is sin, and either one perceives the other as insane and meaningless. Love is the basis for a world perceived as wholly mad to sinners who believe theirs is the way to sanity. But sin is equally insane within the sight of love, whose gentle eyes would look beyond the madness and rest peacefully on truth. Each sees a world immutable, as each defines the changeless and eternal truth of what you are, and each reflects a view of what the mother and the child must be to make that viewpoint meaningful and sane. Your special function is the special form in which the fact that God is not insane appears most sensible and meaningful to you. The content is the same. The form is suited to your special needs and to the special time and place in which you think you find yourself, and where you can be free of place and time and all that you believe must limit you. The child of God cannot be bound by time, nor place, nor anything God did not will. Yet, if her will is seen as madness, then the form of sanity which makes it most acceptable to those who are insane requires special choice. Nor can this choice be made by the insane, whose problem is their choices are not free, and made with reason in the light of sense. It would be madness to entrust salvation to the insane. Because she is not mad, has God appointed one as sane as she to raise a saner world to meet the sight of everyone who chooses insanity as her salvation. To this one is given the choice of form most suitable to her, one which will not attack the world she sees, but enter into it in quietness and show her she is mad. This one but points to an alternative, another way of looking at what she has seen before and recognizes as the world in which she lives and thought she understood before. Now must she question this, because the form of the alternative is one which she cannot deny nor overlook nor fail completely to perceive at all. To each, her special function is designed to be perceived as possible and more desired, as it proves to her that it is an alternative she really wants. From this position, her sinfulness and all the sin she sees within the world offer her less and less, until she comes to understand it cost her her sanity, and stands between her and whatever hope she has of being sane. Nor is she left without escape from madness, for she has a special part in everyone's escape. She can no more be left outside without a special function in the hope of peace than could the mother overlook her child and pass her by in careless thoughtlessness. What is dependable except God's love? And where does her sanity abide except in her? The one who speaks for her can show you this. In the alternative she chose especially for you, it is God's will that you remember this, and so emerge from deepest mourning into perfect joy. Accept the function that has been assigned to you in God's own plan to show her child that hell and heaven are different, not the same, and that in heaven they are all the same, without the differences which would have made a hell of heaven and a heaven of hell, had such insanity been possible. The whole belief that someone loses but reflects the underlying tenet God must be insane, for in this world it seems that one must gain because another lost. If this were true, then God is mad indeed. But what is this belief except a form of the more basic tenet, sin is real and rules the world? For every little gain must someone lose and pay exact amount in blood and suffering, for otherwise would evil triumph and destruction be the total cost of any gain at all. You who believe that God is mad, look carefully at this and understand that it must be either God or this must be insane, but hardly both. Salvation is rebirth of the idea no one can lose for anyone to gain, and everyone must gain if anyone would be a gainer. Here is sanity restored, and on this single rock of truth can faith in God's eternal saneness rest in perfect confidence and perfect peace. Reason is satisfied, for all insane beliefs can be corrected here, and sin must be impossible if this is true. This is the rock on which salvation rests, the vantage point from which the Holy Spirit gives meaning and direction to the plan in which your special function has a part. For here, your special function is made whole because it shares the function of the whole. Remember, all temptation is but this: a mad belief that God's insanity would make you sane and give you what you want, that either God or you must lose to madness because your aims cannot be reconciled. Death demands life, but life is not maintained at any cost. No one can suffer for the will of God to be fulfilled. Salvation is her will because you share it, not for you alone, but for the self that is the child of God. She cannot lose, for if she could, the loss would be her mother's, and in her no loss is possible. And this is sane, because it is the truth. This text is a perfect reminder that the laws of love make no sense in this world, no sense at all. We can't imagine life happening without a cost. In this world, if a being does not eat another living thing, even if it's a plant, it's still a living thing, that person or animal or whatever it is dies. But this says life is not maintained at any cost, contrasted to death demands life. In this world, that life can only live by something else dying to feed it is insanity and cannot be God's will, therefore cannot be real. That's just one example. I love the opening phrase that the Holy Spirit can commute each sentence we laid upon ourselves into a blessing. And since that is true, it cannot be sin. This text reading reinforces so powerfully that sin is the cornerstone of all that is the dream illusion. It is something that the separate self has attempted to set in place as eternal and immutable in the place of love. It says that in trying to make sin the eternal truth, the unchangeable truth, it is trying to keep us safe from love. And what does that mean? This has been hinted at before. Why are we afraid of love? Why do we feel the need to be kept safe from love? Because love would erase the whole idea of a separate self. When we identify with the ego, we have an irrational, completely mad, absolute addiction and feeling of absolute dependence on an idea of having a separate identity. A unique, separate, different, special identity. That is why we want to be saved from love. We don't want to disappear into God. But is it really disappearing if what happens is that you become everything? Nothing is lost and everything is gained. This is why we believe so solidly in death. A Course in Miracles earlier on said, why not let your very first miracle be to raise the dead? There is no difficulty, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. There is no reason why undoing death would be any more difficult than any other miracle. The problem is we do believe in an order of difficulty in miracles, and our belief in death is, it's robust. It is very intense. Our belief in death has been reinforced again and again and again. I have this image in my mind of somebody kneading dough for bread and, putting in the flour and just kneading it again and again and again, layer after layer after layer, just folding it in again and again and again. This reinforcement of a belief in death, because death is the natural result of trying to make sin the cornerstone, the eternal, immutable thing upon which all is based. This whole universe of chaos and entropy is based on it. It says in this text reading that if we realize that the only thing that cannot be changed is God's will, this course would not be difficult for us. Again, our belief in sin and death is quite strong, hence our belief in punishment and suffering and everything else that is perceived as unpleasant. Very strong belief, very strong faith. This text reading states multiple times, hey, this is what you believe. It's not helpful to deny that this is what you believe, because it is, and this is what we're working with. It's not a problem for the course as long as you simply practice the thought discipline exercises it is asking of you. God will easily take care of the rest, but realize that this is what you believe. You believe, I believe, we all believe that sin is the unchangeable truth, that we exist in a universe of chaos and entropy, that a living thing must eat another living thing to survive. Very firm belief. It's very helpful for us to just accept this in order to move forward, because we don't have to believe it. But accepting that we do believe it now is important to moving forward. We are being asked to instead begin to believe that the Holy Spirit has the power to change the whole foundation of the world we see into something else. A world in which there is no conflict and contradiction in anything that brings sanity and joy. A world where death and cruelty is completely absent. Separation and differences also absent. All are perceived as one, and no one loses to bring gain to another. It says we are to test everything we believe against this one requirement, that no one loses for the gain of another. That is the only thing that is worthy of our faith, that all win, that all receive everything. What is not love is sin, and love gives everyone everything. We are given an interesting piece of information about our special function. It says that our special function is the special form in which the fact that God is not insane appears most sensible and meaningful to you. That is something interesting to ponder. It seems that each of us has our own unique way of it being a little bit easier for us to see an aspect of the sanity of God. And it allows us to help others to see it, because that part is a little bit easier for us to see. It says the content is the same, and when A Course in Miracles refers to content, it is referring to love. It says the form is suited to your special needs and to the special time and place in which you think you find yourself, where you can be free of place and time and all that we think limits us. That's really cool. Because the truth is, the child of God cannot be limited by time or space or anything that is not God's will. Reminder, time and space are not God's will. They are things that separate by definition. They separate one moment from another. They separate one place from another. It is God's will that all be one. And then it says a very similar thing in a different way, that if God's will is seen as madness, then the form of sanity which makes it most acceptable to that one who is insane requires special choice. There again is that word special, the thing that was made to perpetuate the separation, but has been turned by the Holy Spirit to the purposes of love. Special choice. That's what each of us has. It says that salvation is not entrusted to the insane, but to the one who is sane, who's been given to us, to quietly enter in and simply point out an alternative, another way of looking at something, and show us that we were wrong. We thought we understood, but we did not. It further says about our special function that it is designed to be perceived as possible and more desired, that our special function proves to us that this beautiful, peaceful alternative is what we really want. And from that position, does that sinful perspective that was held before offer less and less attractiveness, until the individual comes to understand that that perspective had cost us our sanity, and that it is what stands between us and whatever hope we have of being sane. I love this. Salvation is rebirth of the idea no one can lose for anyone to gain. This is something we all knew in the beginning, before the separation. We're just remembering it. This is the rock of truth. This is the eternal saneness that we can place our faith in and rest in perfect confidence and perfect peace. In this is reason satisfied, and all insane beliefs can be corrected in this. This is the rock on which salvation rests. This is the vantage point from which the Holy Spirit gives meaning and direction to the plan in which our special functions have a part, and our special functions are made whole because it shares the function of the whole. This is paradise. Everyone receiving, no one losing. It says no one can suffer for the will of God to be fulfilled. The loss of any one is the loss of God the Mother. May it be so. May all receive. And Lesson 214, review of Lesson 194. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. 194. I place the future in the hands of God. The past is gone, the future is not yet. Now am I freed from both. For what God gives can only be for good, and I accept but what she gives as what belongs to me. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. That is our brief review. Happy practicing.